people, Deluded, I'm back again. Thank you very much for tuning back in. Now, on this Sunday, as Arsenal fans, we're a bit sour. I'm not going to lie, I'm mad sour. I've accepted that we're poor. I've accepted we're not getting top four. I've accepted that I don't know when Arsenal is going to get out of this rut. But I'm sour, people. I'm seeing Liverpool, and obviously this is banter, but Liverpool, credit where they're due from a coaching perspective. You lot know me, I give credit where due. And I don't want to say the way I don't like being jealous. I'm not jealous in my life, but football, I'm jealous of Liverpool fans. Look what they're doing, people. They're probably, and I'm saying all of this hoping that my words come back to bite me in a positive light, but it looks like they're going to remain invincible. The one thing I got to cling on to as an Arsenal fan, it looks like they're going to do this thing as well as winning the league. And I'm sour because they've got a real team, work ethic, everything's going right at Liverpool. City's obviously having a blip, to put it nicely, out of the table, well, out of the league race by 14 points at this moment in time. Listen, anything can happen in football, but I personally think Liverpool's won the league. Again, hoping to be wrong, but I think they've done it, innit? I think Liverpool, they bit them, they shot themselves in the foot last season, dropping not a similar points tally, but like 9 or so points. I think them players are going to remember how that felt, and it's spurring them on, and they're learning from their mistakes, sort of thing. So I think they're going to see that through. Whether that happens is another thing. Obviously, Spurs have got Jose Mourinho, still question marks over how they're playing. Not much he can change in quick succession. But they played bloody superbly against Burnley. That Son goal, madness, people. Son, madman in the Premier League. Again, sour when you see them players there. Spurs, what? Spurs were like 14th a couple of weeks ago, and now they're above us and things like that. So they're, if I can say the word resurgence, do you get it? Chelsea have had a blip. They've had a blip. They've lost 2 games recently against West Ham and obviously at the weekend. But generally, they've been doing all right this season, and people didn't give them a chance and thought transfer ban, new manager Lampard. It's not gonna be a dead season, but there's not really any expectations. They're still in the front. United, okay, they've still got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, still question marks over if he can do the thing there. But either way, credit where it's due. I'm sure most United fans were dreading the worst in their in their previous 2 games they've played prior to playing them. They've got 6 points. Doesn't matter how they did it against Spurs and City and whatnot. It's no fluke. So you're seeing that. You're seeing teams take points, and again, togetherness, work ethic, belief, all of them things there were shown in 180 minutes for United. Credit where due. So I'm sour as an Arsenal fan. I never saw that against Brighton. I haven't seen that this season, really and truly. We just had a defeative attitude. We've just got woe is me, and it's only going to get worse if we keep feeling sorry for ourselves. Tomorrow we play West Ham away from home, a ground we lost at last season. West Ham, regardless of their form, like every other team literally in the Premier League, you should be thinking you can beat Arsenal. No need to go into specifics in regards to the obvious tactical reasons and how we play, but yeah. But I'm sour, people, I can't lie. So I'm sour seeing all of that. But other than that, we might as well just go through, I don't know, just go through what I'm seeing on Twitter in regards to rumours and that, man. First and foremost, let's start with some transfer business. Now, might not necessarily walk straight into the first team 11, but we've been linked with Jan Couto, the under-17 Brazilian right back. I'm sure he was part of the side that just won the recent competition with Gabriel Verón and all of them guys there. I'm so sure he was named in player of the tournament. Again, I haven't watched him religiously, but I did watch that tournament, and he's a very good attacking fullback. He's got good decision making. Still very raw, still needs to improve positionally, potentially needs to bulk up as well, not marginally, but you know, filling out. He's 16, 17, 18 years of age, however old he's technically turned now. Well, he's either 16, 17, but since that tournament's finished, he could have been 17 and turned 18 before you lot get at me in the comments. But I like him. I think he's a decent fullback. Apparently, his team only want £5 million, which is a lot of money for me in my room to sit here and say. But footballer terms, it's not that much. Leverkusen want him. For me, I hope there's legs to it. I hope, obviously, with Edu coming to the club, and even prior to that, Raul Sanye's South American ties is probably potentially why we're getting linked with a bit more South Americans. Like, before Edu officially took over, do you remember we was linked with every Argentinian talent that played for Boca Juniors, people, like Pavon at a point and whatnot. He's probably, Jan Couto probably has a lot of admirers, because I'm so sure he was named in the player of the tournament, in the team of the tournament, as the right back. He's very attacking, and Brazil won it. They've got some good players, and I'm sure he wants to move to Europe. I'm sure he potentially wants to stay at his current club and develop, but let's be honest, it is probably the dream of all Brazilians to eventually move, no matter what they want to accomplish in Brazil, eventually come to Europe. A lot of South American players in some capacity. So I would take him. We need a right back. I don't really see any. I'd like Daniel Ayorke in the under 18s, but I don't really see an immediate right back to challenge Bellerin. Again, he'd be moving from playing youth team football / I don't know if he's actually, I've only, like I said, only watched him in the World Cup. I don't know if he's played senior football, but I can guarantee he's not got that much experience. So when you're going from that to the Premier League, probably an adaptation period. So then it remains to be seen whether he'd immediately play first team. Which for him, you should be looking at a team where if you're not going to be first choice, you're, where you settle in your first team, your second choice, but you're eventually playing football. I think he should look at it. For us, we've got no right back to challenge Bellerin. Don't want to put too much expectations, but long term he could be a decent option. So I'd fully be up for it if there is legs to this people. But not just him. A lot of them young Brazilian players that played in the tournament probably have a list and a whole host of admirers from all the top clubs in Europe. So yeah. Now, people, I'm sure you saw former Bayern Munich manager Niko Kovac, best probably known for his time at Frankfurt before he took over Bayern Munich. He was seen at the Everton game. Now, shout out to Duncan Ferguson. Everton played well, defeating Chelsea. The spirit, all of them things that's been missing and Evertonians have been calling for was shown in that isolated 90 minutes. But Kovac was there. Whether he was just legitimately watching the game, whether there's obviously they've just recently sacked Marco Silva, so there's legs to him potentially coming in. Whether he's doing what Jose was doing in strategically positioning himself going to games, or maybe he's just enjoying the game of football because he's not in work at the moment. He saw a chance to watch Chelsea, Everton, Premier League, and thought, I'll go to it. You don't know. Sometimes that could be it. But he was at that game. Apparently he was at Arsenal's game as well recently. Apparently, I mean, not at Arsenal's game recently. Apparently, he's going to be at the Emirates. Not at the Emirates. It can't be at the Emirates. At what's West Ham's team called again? It's not Upton Park. I'm sure West Ham fans want to move back to Upton Park. Let's just call it Olympic Stadium, I believe. Yeah, the Olympic Stadium, whatever it's called. Apparently, he's going to be there watching us now. Again, we've got rid of our manager. Ljungberg is currently interim manager. Does he have the credentials to do it? Will he be given it is another thing, and for him to show. But there's an uncertainty over the Arsenal managing role. So does he want that? Potentially, that could be something for him. I mean, full of admiration for his work at Frankfurt. Bayern Munich, obviously anyone can fail there, and he is a good coach and whatnot. I just don't think he's the right fit for Arsenal in a sense of I can't really put my hand on it. It's not necessarily tactically. I don't really have a leg to stand on. I just don't think he's the, your gut instinct. I just don't think he's the right fit. People, to be fair. Apparently he wants to replace Unai Emery, but he's not viewed as a front runner, and I don't think he would. Again, it's not what I think because I don't know, but I don't think he'd be on Arsenal's shortlist to replace managers. But if we flip it on its head and we look at recent reports saying we haven't really got the money to give Pochettino and Spurs the compensation. Well, Spurs the compensation package. We're not going to spend that money on Rodgers, the 13-14 million. Apparently, we're under financial constraints in that regards, and we're looking for managers available right now. To which he ticks that box. If we go on them reports, then he's obviously going to be a front runner, or if not necessarily a front runner, in the mix, or at least there's tabs on him, or at least he's a contingency plan of some sort. People, who knows, man. Apparently, Arsenal have started talking to potential candidates and whatnot, and haven't, so far as the media knows, he's not on the shortlist, but apparently his immediate availability could be viewed favourably to Edu and Raul Sanllehi. Now, you are seeing reports saying that we want to announce a manager quickly. You've actually seen, it was either the Times or the Daily Mail say Arsenal players have lost faith in Ljungberg. I mean, if there's any truth to that, he's just been in the role, really and truly. So we'll have to see what happens. But going back, final point on Niko Kovac, just seeing this, apparently his interest has been made known to the Arsenal hierarchy. So has he been pimping himself out and touting himself to get that role? Who knows, people? Is it a case of Arsenal legitimately interested in him, or is he more interested in Arsenal than we are in him potentially? Who knows, people? Moving on to Vieria, who's not having the greatest of times in Nice. And again, I love Vieira, but I don't think he's the best fit beyond being an authoritative figure and whatnot. There's got to be more to that than being a manager. And you look at what he's doing at Nice, he's not necessarily utilising his side. He does do a couple of dodgy and questionable tactical things and dodgy squad selections. A lot of what he's nothing like Emery, but a lot of the current question marks we had in regards to Emery stepping down could be applied to him at Nice and whatnot. Of course, if Vieria came, he'd have my backing. But he said in relation to Arsenal, and he must be sick and tired of speaking about Arsenal links, you can never ignore a club where you spent 9 years. But honestly, I'm focused on this project at Nice. I feel very good here. It's a very exciting project. I've always said I'm very happy in Nice. We're all working to move the club forward and there is potential. So he doesn't want it. Yeah, people, he doesn't want the role, people. He just doesn't want the role. Moving on away from from speculation and transfers and things and dealing with who's immediately manager at this moment in time. Relation to our top 4 chances, Ljungberg has said, no, I don't think we should stop talking about the top 4, but for us, it's about concentrating on what we're doing here now and not looking up, down, sideways. We just need to work on our own game and our own confidence. And that is a sentence that should have been through no fault of Ljungberg, but that's a statement that the board, the club, the players, Emery should have been saying in August. That's the mentality in August. We've got no choice but to look sideways and whatnot now because we're in free fall. Mathematically, top 4's there. The way we're playing, we can forget about top 10, let alone top 6 or top 4, which probably isn't going to happen. I don't think we're going to get relegated, but I can't really have a leg to stand on for people that are panicking. Not that I think we're getting relegated. And that's all we can do. We need to get back to basics. Like, obviously, you're seeing what Spurs are doing, you're seeing what United are doing, in which all 3 of us are at a point. We were all kind of hanging on. We'd be the teams kind of trying to tussle each other up over a spot in the top 4 that Leicester and Chelsea in previous weeks would have given up. And we're seeing United, big 6 points this week or recent games. Spurs, resurgence, whatever way you look at it, getting 3 points. I'd say their most convincing performance was against Burnley. They've had 2 games before that, I believe West Ham and someone else, where they've shut out the game and then they've conceded goals and made it harder work. But that was a complete performance at the weekend. So Jose resurgence. We can't afford to look at that because if you can't defend, if you can't go out there with a clarity of mind, with the intent to win, with the hunger to win and all the positive connotations to win a game of football, let alone the context of Arsenal and top 4 and Premier League, forget about it. Spurs coming ahead of us at this moment in time. It does not matter what other clubs are doing. We just need to win a game of football again, and we're only going to get that if players stop feeling sorry for themselves. First and foremost, we go back to basics. We accept that we are making poor mistakes generally as a club, and hold our hands up and move forward. Until we do that, and people are honest with themselves at all levels, you can forget about a lot of this, people, really and truly. But what Ljungberg is saying, I can't blame him. Moving on, he's offered some more notes in relation to squad selections, and he said, I haven't said I'm going to build the team around specific players, but I felt I want to play the experienced players when it's such a difficult situation like it is at the moment. So he echoes what we say, people. Obviously, there's a flip side to it, and we'll get onto that, but it's a bit of madness at the moment. How can you expect Joe Willock, for all the question marks you might have over him, Saka, Martinelli, how can these players thrive if when they're looking around, they're seeing players that have been capped by their countries several times, experienced players, over 100 games for one club and for dozens, for a couple of clubs, let alone Arsenal. Some of these guys, Saka, Martinelli, Nelson, probably because he went Germany, but you get the point. If we was to stack around 5 of our young players together, you're barely touching 100 appearances. How can you expect them to thrive or pull it out when experienced players are hiding or bottling, are not being consistent, people? You young players, again, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and constructive criticism for all these individual players in regards to what they want to do, but you expect your young players to have poor games. You don't expect your experienced players consistently to drop these clangers. And when these young players need to be guided through games and they need their hands held and they're seeing players wetting their pants more than them, what can they really do, people? The flip side of that is in chaos, sometimes young players thrive in that. Yeah, they can get scared, but it's like Saka, Martinelli, Nelson, all these guys, it's not that they don't care about Arsenal's form, but it's like it's irrelevant to them. They're just so hungry to play a game of football and impress and play this game again that they're playing with no fear. Sometimes, and they want to be first team players, so they've got that carrot, and that kind of rubs off on the fans and whatnot, people. That is something, that's the flip side of it. But he seems to be protecting his young players, and regardless, like I said, if you're good enough, you're old enough. He said Nelson is the future. He brought on Saka. He believes in these players. And I'm not critiquing his decisions, but he played Joe. He's prepared to take the risk for Joe. You saw it. So, truly in his heart, I have to say Ljungberg, again, I know you believe players are the futures, but you probably don't believe that some of these players are necessarily ready. But you cannot disagree with what Ljungberg is saying. I'm not criticizing anything he's saying, people. It's more the club's decisions that led us to this point. And he said, I decided not to pick all the young players that are going to change the future of this club. I made a conscientious choice to put down the older players to take responsibility and change the games. Now, Ljungberg, I think we've seen this under EMERY. Maybe a new voice can change things, but these senior individuals either can't take responsibility, are afraid of responsibility, or just simply not good enough. All of these players fall into one of the three of these experienced players. None of them are really positive, really and truly. In fact, there's a fourth reserved for Lacazette and them players there. But you get the point. We'll have to see. The Mirror is saying that Arsenal, we wanted him at Fulham, we wanted him from United allegedly, and we want him when he comes back from his loan at Roma. Now, Chris Smalling is in a good bit of form at Roma. He's enjoying his life, but apparently Arsenal are linked with him. Now, again, this could just be paper talk. There might be legs to it. To be fair, could Smalling do much worse than any of the defenders currently in this team? Is Smalling an inspired signing? Is it the signing Arsenal want? Of course not. Is there legs to this report? Potentially not. It seems like the old recycled rumour, but you never know. Arsenal and United, with the Alexis and Mkhitaryan deals respectively, have shown they'll deal with each other to a degree. United and Chelsea have done couple dealings for matter. Ox has been bought from Liverpool to Arsenal. Again, money talks, but I do think the stance is softening in regards to top players manoeuvring through certain clubs. Obviously, you're never going to see Raheem Sterling go from City to Liverpool again, or you're not going to see Van Dijk go to City. Anything can happen in football. You're not going to see people on it like that, but a couple players, you can see things. Players like this that are on their way out, that is, I don't want to use you, you go there. Like Giroud clearly wasn't going to be used. Luiz not featuring in Chelsea's plans this season, got thrown over here. Do you get it? Throwing people about. Alexis don't want to be here. Mkhitaryan, they weren't really feeling him at United. Let's swap these two duds and see what happens. It didn't bang. Do you get it, people? We're moving on from that. There's nothing really to talk about in relation to Arteta, but this segment, it comes from Spain. Arteta said, Pep does not actually carry out the training sessions. This is where I come in, because I then have to work with the players on a more individual level. As Pep does not have time for that, he has to take charge of other important things, new tactics, set piece, etc. Now, that's nothing new. Ferguson took training sessions, but Meulenstein, all of these guys. And this is why I told you, lot, the coaching staff are vital, because no manager in today's day and age can physically, and they probably can, but can coach every moment. You can't lead every training session. Think of new tactics, do video analysis and whatnot. That's why delegation is important, people, and that's something the great big man Ferguson was the king at. Delegation. He's the guy, he's able to do it, but finding the right people first and foremost to have confidence in that. Okay, cool, I'm going to go scout, let's just say I'm going scouting this player in Scotland. I'm going to go and look at someone, they said the young's David Beckham. Lead training for me. I want us to work on 2 banks of 4. He's come back, he's seen he's able to do that. Do you get it? Many people will see that comment, and I'm not criticising Arteta, because clearly that's positive, because he's got hands-on approach with players. We need a coach that can coach first and foremost and improve players, but it is nothing new. As much as I believe in Arteta and wouldn't mind him taking over necessarily, people, many harsh critics will say, okay, he's laid out cones for Pep when Pep is getting a coffee or whatever. What does that mean? And they'll obviously look at Ljungberg, who similar position in terms of inexperience with Arteta, seeing the mess which is Arsenal, seeing that even the most experienced, decorated manager can come into this role and will struggle. Could someone fresh out football management's womb essentially do the job, really? Because Arteta, yeah, he's got a good playing career, been under Pep for a couple of years, but in management terms, he's very much an infant and a baby. To get experience, you need experience, complete different contexts and whatnot. But Pep Guardiola, at one point, Barcelona had to take the risk on someone that, while he did something great with Barcelona B, just Barcelona B coach, not really anything past that. I'm not saying Arteta's going to be Pep. I'm not saying anyone else is going to have a career like that, because Pep was clearly a destiny thing. But someone's got to give someone a chance eventually. Before all these names that we've said, people, someone has to, whether you want Rodgers, Simeone, all of these players, all these managers, at some point somebody had to give them a chance, innit? We can't really afford to give chances because of the mess we're in, but who knows what will happen, people, really and truly. I don't think there's anything else to add, really and truly, of any significance. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. And on that note, we might as well just get out of here. So, people, it's been a pleasure. DG, I'm out.